Welcome to the Millstone Report, everybody. My name is Paul Harrell. So really just now on the Senate floor, they took two votes over the course of the morning. One of them was the Democrats' plan to, I don't know, what do they want, $1 trillion, health care for illegal aliens. That failed, right? And they needed 60 votes. So then the House version, the Republican House version of the bill came up. Again, this is trying to reopen the government because it closed at midnight yesterday. And that failed as well. They didn't get to the 60 votes. So that's the latest from the Senate floor. We're going to talk about the government shutdown. We're also going to talk about Pete Hegseth and his quest to purge the wokeness out of the military. I listened to his entire speech, and I thought it was fantastic. I don't know how a lot of these generals took it. I thought it was a fantastic speech. But I also kept waiting in classic Steve Jobs form for him to unveil the latest iPhone or piece of technology. It very much had that feel to it to me. Anyway, we've got a great show for you. The Millstone Report starts right now. So there you have it. We've got government shutdown and no fat generals. No more fat generals. A military returning to their standards, and that is going to be very interesting to watch and see how people respond to that. We're going to talk more about Pete Hegseth in a minute, but his his reasoning, putting forth this new golden rule about what kind of military would you want your son to go into if it were your child? So every decision needs to be made under, with the idea that this is what would you want for your own family, for your own kids or grandkids. Absolutely excellent. And thought it was really good what he did there at the end, reiterating the prayer that he prays over the troops and how that the Lord of heaven would protect American soldiers. Really just blown away by all of that. And so we're going to get to big portions of his speech a little later in the program today. Before we go any further, though, and talk government shutdown, I want to remind everybody this portion of the program is brought to you by Red Vive. These are life-enhancing, I think life-saving, especially if you look at the statistics when it comes to the surgery, a way to avoid surgery. These are panels that you can have in your home, clinical strength panels. Medical Industrial Complex does not want you to know about. And right now, for my listeners, if you use my name, Paul, or you go to redvivehealth.org/Paul, or you call 844-REDVIVE, you'll get 35% off. 35% off when you use my promo code. And again, redvivehealth.org/Paul. That's the link. And then, or you can just call them, 844-REDVIVE, and mention my name. So, hot off the presses, the vote to open the government has failed. There were two votes again earlier today. I was watching the coverage live, how slow it is. Mr. So-and-so, yay, Mr., anyway, it took forever, it seems like. But, of course, that's the Senate, right? They're the deliberative body, and they take a long time. But it was pretty clear once you get to a certain threshold that they're not going to have the 60 votes. We've got CBS Detroit. They say this. This was, when did they post this? About 16 minutes ago. Excuse me. The House passed measure to fund the government until November 21st. Again, fell short of 60 votes in the Senate for a third time. And so then I want to know what the liberal media is saying about this, right? So this is CBS News now. So they go with government shutdown, live updates as up to 750,000 federal workers face a furlough. Now, what to know? They say, well, this is, basically overnight. They couldn't agree. Now as many as 750,000 government workers, could be furloughed according to Congressional Budget Office. And they will not be paid until Congress appropriates funding and the shutdown ends. Workers deemed to be essential will stay on the job. So now, who's going to get to decide all of this? Well, this now all goes to Russ Vought the office of management. He's going to be the one that gets to make these decisions. And we know this because President Trump has told us this even a couple of days ago. Yesterday, he even said, look, I mean, Trump was saying, I don't want the government to shut down because things are going so well, is what he said. But he said, hey, if it does, we're actually going to have a lot of power to make a lot of changes. The hatchet versus the scalpel, if you will, right? Remember Barack Obama? Barack Obama, that's what he would say. I want to, I got to use a scalpel with the government. I don't want to use I want to use a hatchet. Remember all that? I remember that like it was yesterday, but that's because I'm old. We've come a long way. I actually think this is a huge opportunity. Now that the government is shut down, it's a huge opportunity to make some big changes, to trim the fat, or hatchet the fat. And honestly, if the government reopens, I would, and you want some people to come back, I would make some people have to reapply. I would open up these positions so that you can get, if you've got to get people back in there, you get better people back in there. That's one of the things. But as somebody who's on the right, I'll just say, I mean, we've been waiting for an executive branch to do what they all say they're always going to do on the campaign trail, but never do, and that's actually bring Washington, D.C. to heel. It makes no sense that there is so many, anytime there's an economic downturn, we all know this, Washington, D.C., all of those counties in Virginia that surround Washington, D.C., it's an oasis of jobs, it's an oasis of wealth, it's an oasis of prosperity. And the reason for that is because D.C. takes all of our money and enriches the entire area, right? It was, right, I mean, wasn't there a report done years ago that there's a Lamborghini dealership in D.C., and it's because people walk in with cash and pay for their cars? So, I mean, this has been a long time coming, and so I hope that Russ Vought does what he was put in there to do. And now that he's got more power than he's ever had during this government shutdown. Now, there's also the political ramifications of this. I didn't realize this until I saw this. Steve Bannon reminded me of this, but you have Donald Trump, who comes into office in 2016. There was a government shutdown, I believe, in 2018 sometime, right before the midterms. And Pelosi and the Dems, used that to get a bunch of momentum going so that they could, take over the House. And then, of course, what happened, Trump gets impeached. And of course, a lot of the reason why that happened in and of itself is because Speaker of the House Paul Ryan was a backstabber and didn't want to implement any of the American people's agenda when it came to the border wall and everything else like that. I mean, really, no one spends enough time on how Paul Ryan, at the same time while the Intel oligarchy was framing Trump for treason, you had Paul Ryan, who was just preventing Trump's agenda from being codified. Incredible. Not enough people talk about that, but we need to. But anyway, Bannon is saying, hey, this could be to our advantage, but he also says this is kind of mirroring, because obviously it's a little bit before last time. It's not exactly the case, but maybe the Democrats want to shut down because they want to demagogue and they want to whip up their base in order to give them momentum to taking the House and the Senate in 2026, November. Now, that's over a year away now. It's a long time. But you have to also factor in the assassination of Charlie Kirk with all of this. The violence of the left, their reaction to the assassination, and you have to factor that in terms of midterms. I think most definitely the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and again, I don't mean to only reduce the tragedy of what happened down to politics, but if we're going to talk politics, I think you at least have to admit that the assassination of Charlie Kirk is going to fuel turnout to keep the Dems from taking back the House, especially young people. But I mean, all that remains to be seen. Who knows? Traditionally, historically, we know that whoever's in power, the president wins, and then you have a flip of at least one of the houses of Congress. But it all started with this, folks. It all started with this. There's now a series of memes. There's now a series of memes out there mocking Hakeem Jeffries. And so this was Donald Trump posted somebody's meme to his Truth Social account, in the midst of these negotiations of whether or not we're going to keep the government open.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too. Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it.
This sent Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, cries of racism. Racism went out to the four corners of the earth. I will say, man, with that mustache and that sombrero, he does look like a Mexican. And everybody's just been ripping on this guy so hard, and he can't stand it. So then he goes out and he makes a speech about racism, and people put the sombrero back on.
I'm not even Mexican. I don't know why President Trump keeps saying that shit. He needs to say it to my face, Holmes. And while we're at it, I'm getting really tired of all that dollar store Obama shit. It's getting old, homie. My name is not Dollar Store Obama. Okay, pendejo? Órale! Arriba! Arriba!
So now they're just writing themselves. And my apologies for the language there. Viewer discretion is advised with the swearing. And then we have, let's see So then there's another meme, and Trump put this one on his Truth Social. Here's Hakeem Jeffries going on MSNBC, trying to get all kinds of sympathy. And again, you can't believe the president would do this. I can't believe the president would joke. By the way, this is just funny. I mean, there's no way around it. It's hilarious. Specifically, the reason he's going with the Mexican theme is because they're holding up funding, or they're holding up the House bill because they want funding for illegal immigrants' health care, right? And they're going to try their best, to make that the issue. When in reality, they don't care anything about illegal immigrants' health care. They just care about trying to, they want illegal immigrants to vote. I mean, that's what they want.
Bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault. Bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect...
So now there's every video Hakeem Jeffries makes now, he's going to have to be watching his back for spontaneous mariachi bands and sombreros and mustaches. Also, if you go back and you listen to some of the stuff, it was a fake video. Like we're having to explain comedy to these people. Being made fun of in the culture is something that the Democrat apparatus really isn't familiar with. There was it would happen a few times. When I was growing up, though, it was most appropriate or acceptable in pop culture to rip on the Republicans more so than the Dems. Jay Leno did it on both sides every now and then. And obviously, the late night culture is still, okay, we can't rip on any Dems. We've only got to rip on Republicans. But that's why, Greg Gutfeld's show is so popular, because he's bringing comedy into it and actually poking fun at them. And once again, the majority of Americans, or the silent majority, they think it's pretty darn hilarious of what's going on. Now, this also happened in the context of them we got one more. I'm sorry, one more.
Could you give us your reaction to that Trump posted video tonight?
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear, bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault on all the things: Medicaid, Medicare, the Affordable Care Act. Republicans...
Could you give us your reaction to that Trump...
So, yeah, now there's a sombrero and a mustache behind every corner if you're Hakeem Jeffries. Also, they call him Dollar Store Obama. I actually hadn't heard Dollar Store Obama. I had heard Temu Obama. Temu's that Chinese Amazon. It's like the equivalent of Amazon, but apparently I've never ordered from Temu. I almost did one time on accident, and I was like, wait a second. No, I don't want to do this. And ever since then, Temu has been, they blow up my email all the time. But anyway, I've heard Temu Obama. I haven't heard Dollar General or Dollar Store Obama. That's pretty good. But anyway, the context of this was also, the trolling started long before Donald Trump posts the sombrero and the mustache on Hakeem Jeffries. It actually started while they're in their negotiations where they want $1 trillion in spending and health care for illegals. It started while in the Oval Office. Psychologically speaking, this was a really hilarious move where while they're negotiating, let's see, who do you have here? You have John Thune, Speaker Johnson, Chuck Schumer, and there's Temu Obama, Hakeem Jeffries. And so they're having this conversation about not shutting down the government with Trump 2028 hats on the desk of on the Oval Office desk. Which is hilarious. But it does look like they were actually in, somewhat of a debate there. Johnson trying to talk some sense into Chuck Schumer. Now, look, I say all that, covering all this, because it is funny to me. It is very, very funny. But at the same time, and I hope Russ Vought actually takes a hatchet to the government and everything else. And we're going to talk, me and my co-host Rob Spencer, we're going to talk about more about the government shutdown and whatever else news breaks between now and then on my afternoon show at 4 o'clock, 4 Central, 5 Eastern. But it does seem like a lot of this is also theater, as funny as it is. This idea of a continuing resolution to keep the spending going is just such a joke. I mean, these guys, it's just so funny. You go back and you look at you go back all the way to 2010, because I remember 2010. I was covering the news in 2010. And the spending was out of control, $12 trillion in debt. Now we're $36 trillion in debt, right? And so, ever since 2010 until now, the Congress has just abdicated, especially the House abdicated their funding bills, and they just continue to do these continuing resolutions instead of, I don't know how many spending bills is it supposed to be? Is it 12? I can't remember the exact number. And so this whole thing is it always gets kicked down the road. You kick the can down the road, continuing resolution to a continuing resolution. They never want to actually address the spending. And so I have come to the conclusion that the spending just doesn't matter. I know that's just crazy, and like people like Rand Paul would vehemently disagree with that statement. But somebody knows. I'm just going to reiterate: when it comes to spending, when it comes to the national debt, somebody knows something that we don't know. Because if you understand how much $1 trillion is versus 12 trillion versus 36 trillion, you start to realize that is a gargantuan amount of money that can't be paid back ever. And so there's another plan involved, or there's something else at play here. These people spent $12 trillion that we didn't have when I first started in broadcasting in 2009. $12 trillion that we didn't have. Now they're up to 36, going to hit 40, and nothing bad has happened for the most part. I mean, the middle class has shrunk, and there's all that. But in terms of some sort of cataclysmic, problem, financial collapse. I mean, you could say 2008, but that was something really totally different, not really tied to the debt. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. $1 trillion. I'm going to reiterate this. I've said this my entire career. $1 trillion is $27 million a day for 100 years. $1 trillion, $27 million a day for 100 years. Okay? And we owed 12 trillion of that. So if you can imagine 12 piles of $1 trillion, each pile is 100 years at 27 million a day. And we owed 12 of those. Now we owe 36, 37, 30. I don't even know what it is right now. I should probably look at the debt clock. It's monopoly money, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolute monopoly money. So I don't know. I don't have a solution because I just believe there are people that know a lot that we don't know. And this back and forth about a continuing resolution or, we got to get the debt under control. How in the world are you going to do that? And again, it hasn't mattered all of these years. So if you look at it from that standpoint, and I will caution that this is the Intel oligarchs potentially one of their last moves, especially if they keep getting indicted, is that this entire thing is a crisis in a glass case that has been put on the shelf. And I do not, meaning the national debt, the yearly deficit, all of that stuff only matters when somebody wants it to matter, or some bodies want it to matter. That's all I'm saying. And so as Donald Trump is with the tariffs, at least attempting to revolutionize how we fund the government, I would not put it past these people who would rather just burn it all down than try to actually reform it for the betterment of the people that actually live in America, your average American. I would not put it past for a manufactured crisis that has been decades in the making, but now all of a sudden it's going to matter. So if there is some sort of financial meltdown that's looming, everyone is going to tell you that it's sudden. And I'm telling you, this has been a crisis developed to put on the shelf to use when it's the appropriate time. And it'll probably be used to make sure those in power that have gotten us into this mess don't lose any power. It will probably be used to take away more of our freedoms, more of our liberties, etc., etc. So, tell me what you think about that. I want to tell you more about the good folks at Red Vive and everything that they're trying to do. As I told you earlier, these are clinical strength red light panels that you can have in your home. And right now you can get a 35% discount if you call 844-RED-VIVE or go to redvivehealth.org/Paul. Lighting your path to wellness is exactly right. I used my red light therapy machine this morning. You're supposed to use it when you get up. You're supposed to use it when you go to bed. This is the red light, which is enhancing your collagen production, which gives you anti-aging results. And then there's also the near-infrared light that comes from these panels. The near-infrared light on these particular machines penetrate deep into your body. Not all red light machines are created equally. The near-infrared light penetrates deeper into your body, penetrating your bones, your muscles, your tissues, your subcutaneous fat. There's even proof that this is good for weight loss. So you can look better, you can perform better, you can be at your best, and you can also avoid unnecessary, I believe, unnecessary doctor's visits. We were talking to Raul Desai months ago about this and how a lot of orthopedic surgeons, or that whole kind of pipeline from orthopedic, like you've got something wrong and you get into the surgery pipeline. Surgery is the answer. They're not huge fans of this red light stuff because it can keep you out of the operating room. It can keep you from going under the knife. If you've got some chronic ailment, you think, I think surgery is the answer, but you've never tried red light therapy, maybe you should try red light therapy. Go to redvivehealth.org/Paul, get 35% off. But while you're there, you can shop. You can look around, shop obviously, but look around at their studies and look around at why this technology is scientifically proven. Biophotomodulation. It's a body hack. They have 0% interest financing available. They have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So when you buy, you can send it back. If you got 60 days, you're not going to send it back because people love this stuff. Call 844-RED-VIVE. If you do, mention my name, Paul, to get 35% off. Or go to redvivehealth.org/Paul and experience the healing power of red light today. We are going to take another quick break. We're going to listen from our good friend, Mike Lindell.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard My Pillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Life can be pretty unpredictable, filled with good days and not so good days. And sometimes, the only difference between the two is your level of preparedness. The Jace case lets you be better prepared for whatever comes your way. It contains antibiotics and other prescription medications so that you aren't caught unprepared. With a Jace case, you are able to get your prescription medication before the unpredictable happens, allowing you to turn those not so good days into great ones. Go to Jace.com now and get your own Jace case.
All right, that's JASE.com. Use my name, Paul, and save some cash. Also, mypillow.com. Make sure you use the promo code PH, and I would very much appreciate it. So, Pete Hegseth is taking on quite the task. You know, over the last several years, we have seen the woke sex religion infiltrate and express itself in our military. I mean, I don't have to go into it all. The statements about, you know, the virtue signaling about LGBT this, or diversity is our strength that, or that one guy who was a military officer that also was into that dog fetish stuff and would put his dog mask on. Absolute nonsense. Not to mention making troops take an experimental vaccine, and if you didn't, they kicked you out of the military. Pete Hegseth mentioned all of that in his speech yesterday and more as he tries to purge our military from the woke sex religion and the woke insanity. It was a 45-minute speech, you know, with a room full of generals. And I thought it was I really did think it was good. I loved the Patton energy because he had the big American flag behind him. I loved, you know, a lot of the clips that you're going to play, you know, seem to be critical of the military, but he also was very much complimentary of the men in that room, very much thanking them for not being civilians, for having the courage to enlist, having the courage to do what they did. He also set up an interesting dichotomy with how America, you know, and how Trump has said America hasn't won a war in a long time. I mean, you look at Iraq, you look at Afghanistan, and he says the last war that we actually won was the Gulf War in 1991. And he told people, he said, you know, the reason we won that is because a lot of the commanders at that time were Vietnam veterans. And in Vietnam, they didn't want it to happen again, and they did not want to be, you know, have their hands tied like they did. And so it was a conflict that was over very quickly. He says, likewise, now many of the commanders in our armed forces today are, you know, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, and they don't want to play around anymore. They're tired of the bogus rules of engagement. I mean, I remember talking back, you know, at the height of the ongoing war in Afghanistan. The rules of engagement were absolutely insane, turning our military into some glorified police force that wasn't there to kill the enemy as efficiently as possible. Now, I say all that to say, like, I am still not a pro-war person. I am an anti-forever war person. You guys know that. But I do recognize the need and the necessity of having a strong military that can be unleashed. And when they're unleashed, they kill the other side as efficiently as possible. This is just basic civilization 101. And according to Pete Hegseth, and I think just the evidence, we have not been that in a very long time because these woke, godless political opinions have infiltrated the American military. And that's one of the reasons why Pete Hegseth has fired a bunch of people as well. So he has this big get-together yesterday, and I'm sure you've seen them, a lot of them, but I'm going to play them anyway because I think it's profound, actually. Here it is. Hegseth talking about women in combat and the in standards.
This, and I want to be very clear about this, this is not about preventing women from serving. We very much value the impact of female troops. Our female officers and NCOs are the absolute best in the world. But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. That is not the intent, but it could be the result, so be it. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify because we're not playing games. This is combat. This is life or death. As we all know, this is you versus an enemy hell-bent on killing you. To be an effective, lethal fighting force, you must trust that the warrior alongside you in battle is capable, truly physically capable of doing what is necessary under fire. You know this is the only standard you would want for your kids and for your grandkids. Apply the War Department Golden Rule, the 1990 test, and the E6 test, and it's really hard to go wrong.
There was just a lot of emphasis in this speech. Again, 45 minutes on standards, on the woke department versus the now newly named War Department. It was really good. Isn't it insane? It is absolutely, it is civilization suicide to weaken the standards of your war fighters so that women can feel good about themselves. Now, not to me, I mean, I think women in combat, as just a general rule, is a terrible idea, and I think it reflects poorly on men. Women in combat roles, I'm totally against, from a biblical standpoint, honestly. But the fact of the matter is, you didn't ever really, practically speaking, you never had to make that pronouncement because the standards were what they were. And for the most part, women are not going to be able to meet the standards. The highest standards that you put on men, for the most part, generally speaking, it's just not ever going to happen. And so it's quite remarkable that we have existed for as long. I mean, I cannot imagine the first time this idea was floated. We're going to lower the standards so that we have more diversity. By diversity, we just mean more women in combat positions. It really does expose feminism as being one of America's great idols. And I'm going to make this analogy again, but it goes back to the legalization of abortion. It really does. If you, as a woman, have the right to murder your child with no consequences, meaning it's not illegal, it's not considered murder by the government, so therefore, whatever, you have a special power where we are allowing you to murder your child, no consequences. How are you going to tell somebody that has that special carve-out that they can't be in combat if they want to? How exactly? Now, I mean, I'm just telling you the gradual progression. I'm not saying people are actually having that exact line of thought, but I just think over time it just exposes the entire spirit of the age, if you will. Just lends itself towards, well, there's no difference between women and men, well, except the fact that this special class of people, all women, can murder children, and we won't call it murder, we'll look the other way. How are you going to tell that person, oh, by the way, you can't do all of these other things that we don't want you to do when you're allowed to do the one thing all societies agree is morally wrong and is punishable, murder, you've got a license to do that. You've literally got a license to kill. Who are we to say that you, almighty woman, can't serve in combat? At least that's the way I feel. And I've made this analogy before, many of you know, but the same thing goes for being a pastor. The Bible's clear. Church offices for men. Very clear. But how are you going to tell a woman that she can't preach a sermon when she's been given the legal right to murder her child? Now, obviously, many denominations have failed at that. Many denominations have been firm on that and have said, actually, no, you're right. The Bible does say that pastors are men. Next up, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, challenged the generals. He doesn't want any more fat generals. So right now we're at a time, right now in this window, where the government is shut down and we don't want any more fat soldiers.
With physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already. With physical fitness.
I'm not a military guy. Not at all. Did not possess that level of courage or commitment when I was a much younger guy. But I think I'm not alone in saying I would assume that would have always been the case. I would have assumed that, well, of course, you're in the military. Like, you have strict physical standards that, you're going to be evaluated in order to stay in the military. Like, that's the whole point. You're a soldier, so you can't be fat. You got to be able to defeat the enemy. You can't do that if you're slow and fat. So it's just incredible to me that this is even having to be corrected is kind of wild. So along with PT, he's saying we're going to fight the little battles as well. And that includes facial hair. So the military, in the past, they've got strict regulations on facial hair, right? You can have a mustache. I think the mustache, even there's like width limits on a mustache. You can have a mustache, I think. Maybe not in all ranks. But you can't have a beard.
This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. Because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. It's like when you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes. So you have to address the small stuff. This is on duty, in the field, and in the rear. If you want a beard, you can join Special Forces. If not, then shave. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. But unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refuse to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards. Both are unacceptable. And that's why today, at my direction, the era of unprofessional appearance is over. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done. Simply put, if you do not meet the male-level physical standards for combat positions, cannot pass a PT test, or don't want to shave and look professional, it's time for a new position or a new profession.
It's pretty wild. We're not a military of Nordic pagans. I've already seen the memes with that statement versus Kash Patel referencing Valhalla when he gave his speech in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I mean, this goes against the doesn't this so cut against the grain of our modern perceptions of individual expression and it so goes against the idea that you have rules, there will be rules, they will be enforced, no exceptions. I feel like my entire life, everything has been about just coming up in society in general, that there's always an exception. There's always this, I've got my ability to express myself. And that's something that we have in civilian life, probably a little too much of, but it infected and infiltrated the military. Now, that's something that's doable. I mean, I think there used to be a restriction on tattoos. That's not the case anymore because everybody has them. I mean, I don't, but so many people have them. They wouldn't be able to field the military. And Pete Hegseth himself has tattoos. He's got a Jerusalem cross right here. Next up, we have this. No more identity months, DEI offices, or dudes in dresses. Listen.
To remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department. To rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit. I've made it my mission to uproot the obvious distractions that made us less capable and less lethal. That said, the War Department requires the next step. Underneath the woke garbage is a deeper problem, and a more important problem that we are fixing and fixing fast. To remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological...
one of the tenets of his speech was we have to state the obvious, and that's what he's doing here. We have to state what's in front of our faces. We have to be more lethal. We have to accept what our mission truly is. A military's job is to kill the other side as efficiently as possible. As efficiently to make the other party, when you decide, we're declaring war on these people, they are better off dead than alive. We have to declare war on them. When that decision is made by the commander-in-chief or Congress, presumably Congress, your mission is to kill the other side as efficiently as possible. That is the only function of a military at war. And that has not at all been the mentality over the last, 20 years in Afghanistan, and the poppy fields. You get what I'm saying? So this is welcome news here. So here are his full remarks. And I didn't find these clipped up. This was one of the most interesting parts of his speech, about the 30-minute mark, where he talks about how he has fired these generals. And he talks about how it was more of an art than it was a science. More of an art than a science, he said. And because you've got some instances where these generals were implementing these woke policies from politicians. And you've got some of the generals, you got to decide, well, which generals were implementing that because they had to, and which generals were implementing this because they love it, because they're on board with the trans, woke, LGBTQ, RSTLNE, would you like to buy a Val enclave? Listen.
Have seen, and the media has obsessed over, I have fired a number of senior officers since taking over. The previous chairman, other members of the Joint Chiefs, combatant commanders, and other commanders. The rationale for me has been straightforward. It's nearly impossible to change a culture with the same people who helped create or even benefited from that culture. even if that culture was created by a previous president and previous secretary. My approach has been simple. When in doubt, assess the situation, follow your gut, and if it's the best for the military, make a change. We all serve at the pleasure of the president every single day. But in many ways, it's not their fault. It's not your fault. As foolish and reckless as the woke department was, those officers were following elected political leadership. An entire generation of generals and admirals were told that they must parrot the insane fallacy that, quote, our diversity is our strength. Of course, we know our unity is our strength. They had to put out dizzying DEI and LGBTQI plus statements. They were told females and males are the same thing, or that males who think they're females are totally normal. They were told that we need a green fleet and electric tanks. They were told to kick out Americans who refuse an emergency vaccine. They followed civilian policies set by foolish and reckless political leaders. Our job, my job, has been to determine which leaders simply did what they must to answer the prerogatives of civilian leadership, and which leaders are truly invested in the woke department, and therefore incapable of embracing the War Department and executing new lawful orders. That's it. It's that simple. So for the past 8 months, we've gotten a good look under the hood of our officer corps. We've done our best to thoroughly assess the human terrain. We've had to make trade-offs and some difficult decisions. It's more of an art than a science. We have been and will continue to be judicious, but also expeditious. The new compass heading is clear. Out with the Shirellis, the Mackenzies, and the Millies, and in with the Stockdales, the Schwarzkopfs, and the Pattons. More leadership changes will be made, of that I'm certain. Not because we want to, but because we must. Once again, this is life and death. The sooner we have the right people, the sooner we can advance the right policies. Personnel is policy. But I look out at this group, and I see great Americans. Leaders who have given decades to our great republic, at great sacrifice to yourselves and to your families.
Well, you just say
but
that.
If the words I'm speaking today,
You just said, you know, you hear that and you look at that and you think, man, I really hope that the men out there, the majority of men out there, have excellent character. But if the majority of men out there don't have excellent character, we are in a lot of trouble. But this is what he says, backing up just a second about this.
leaders who have given decades to our great republic, at great sacrifice to yourselves and to your families. But if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign. We would thank you for your service. But I suspect, I know, the overwhelming majority of you feel the opposite. These words make your hearts full. You love the War Department because you love what you do, the profession of arms. You are hereby liberated to be an apolitical, hard-charging, no-nonsense, constitutional leader that you joined the military to be. We need you locked in on the M. Not the D, the E, or the I, not the DEI or the DIE of dime. By that I mean the M, military, of the instruments of national power. We have entire departments across the government dedicated to diplomatic, informational, and economic lines of effort. We do the M. Nobody else does. And our GoFos need to master it in every domain and every scenario. No more
Total common sense.
distractions, no more political ideologies, no more debris.
It's been a long time coming. I'm certainly, you know, I do not want to go to war, especially under the. But if we do, I would rather go to war with this mentality than the mentalities of the past. That's for sure. The last thing he said to his troops, or to the troops, is at this 44-minute mark, I believe. This was right towards the end of the speech, and I thought this was interesting.
Commander's Prayer. It's a simple yet meaningful prayer for wisdom for commanders and leaders. I encourage you to look it up if you've never seen it. But the prayer, it ends like this. And most of all, Lord, please keep my soldiers safe. Lead them, guide them, protect them, watch over them. And as you gave all of yourself for me, help me give all of myself for them. And amen. I pray.
Oh, man. Certainly a positive development from people like, General Milley, or I can't even remember the last Secretary of Defense's name. It just escaped me. Huge difference. And telling all of these generals, hey, yeah, I'm praying for you. I'm praying that the Lord keeps you safe, and I'm praying that you would give all of yourself the way the Lord, Jesus Christ, gave all of himself for you. What is it? The battle hymn of the Republic? Let us, he died to make men holy. Let us die to make men free. His truth is marching on. Remember this? I don't know. There's people that don't like that song. As a Southerner, there's people that don't like that song because it was a Northern anthem in the Civil War, I believe. And then I got a few more stories we're going to get to. But anyway, feel free to sound off. What do you think about that? I think what Hegseth is doing there is remarkable, and has never been. If you want to know if elections have consequences, that certainly is an example of elections have consequences. It's these little battles that are going on. And this is why I have hope in the light of the government shutdown that Russ Vought does what he is capable of doing. This was yesterday at Utah State University. They were having a Turning Point event yesterday. Off of where the arena was, there was a suspicious package that was discovered that looked like a fake bomb, had wires. Apparently it was a fake bomb, but they still had to use another explosive to detonate it to render it innate. So that was not, according to reports, that was not the explosion of the package. That was some sort of ordinance from the bomb squad to render whatever the package was, which again, it looked like wires, to make sure it was dealt with. But this is just another example of what the left is willing to do to silence Turning Point USA and others. I know Steven Crowder went to SMU the other day and sat down and brought back his Change My Mind segment. Which is extremely brave to do at this point. And then that leads me to this, where we have a shocking report from Rutgers University. 50% of left-of-center respondents believed it is justified to murder Elon Musk for his opinions. 56% believed it was justified to kill Donald Trump for his.
I want to ask you about this Rutgers report.
Good morning.
On the Network Contagion Research Center. This is their conclusion, okay? Users online are increasingly associating the memification of Luigi Mangione with calls for political violence against Elon Musk, President Trump, and others, reflecting the growing cyber social presence of assassination culture. And Aisha, you have some findings that they have here on justification.
It's alarming, and I want to put this up here. This is a justification for murder of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And you'll see here, they found that when it came to the left of center, 50% thought that it was justified to murder Elon Musk. 56%.
Look at that right there. All respondents, 31%. Left of center, 50%. Right of center, 14. That's way too high. All respondents for Donald Trump, 38%. 56%. This just kind of undergirds my point. You don't get to that unless the left believes, right, that they have the moral high ground. I keep telling you this. I don't see any way out of this other than a supernatural intervention, revival, but I think it has to have law and order get involved and actually put people in jail who are criminals and who are financing this. And that goes for the stochastic terrorists at the mainstream media, by the way. We think we have the moral high ground because we don't think women should be terrorized by having men in their locker rooms. We think we have the moral high ground in that position. They think they have the moral high ground. Both sides, on the big issues of the day in America, believe they have the moral high ground. They believe they are morally better than the other person. Now, obviously, from a Christian standpoint, like I'm a sinner, they're a sinner, I'm forgiven by grace. They're not Christians, right? They have not. So, I mean, I get that part, right? Like, I'm not morally superior in the fact that I haven't, that I have no sin. I do. We're not talking about it in those contexts. We're talking about what is the ideal, how we live. How should we then live? The gospel's true. And so then what? Yeah, I'm going to protect my daughter from, being ogled by a man who's mentally deranged and thinks that he's a woman. That's the moral high ground. There it is. That's it. That's the moral high ground, folks. They think they have the moral high ground. They think I'm an evil person. They think traditional families are wrong if they believe that this is the norm for other people, which most people do. And so there's not a kumbaya moment here. There's winners and there's losers. I want to be on the winning side. And I don't want this wicked, woke sex religion to continue to take over the military, which that's being rooted out, or anywhere else, whether it's in our government or whether it's just in public life. That's one of the reasons the shame culture, when it came to, Sinclair not putting Jimmy Kimmel back on, and I don't know, are they still not putting him on? I have no idea what the update on that is, but, and again, it could have just been a business decision, but it also can be like, hey, this is wrong, this is indecent. The FCC, the Federal Communications Department, is one of the last bastions of government saying, hey, there are good things and there are bad things. We're going to condemn the bad things. You can't say these words. You can't say these cuss words on national TV. You can't do it because it's wrong. We've got young people listening, and it's wrong for them to hear that. FCC, they're holding something up, and they're saying, we're going to ban this if you want your license. Banning things is good sometimes. Banning this woke sex religion, that's what has to happen. That's what is happening. And they're turning violent because of it. And you have these statistics here, which is just insane to me. But yet, here it is, out of Rutgers University. I'm going to be back on the air in about 3 hours. We're going to talk more about this, as well as the government shutdown. Really appreciate you guys listening out there. All of you listening on Facebook or X American News. We really appreciate it. And don't forget to go to paultalkshow.substack.com if you want to support the program directly financially. If you become a paid subscriber monthly or yearly, I'll send you a copy of Left Wing Will and The Red Pill. That's all the time that we have for this edition, this noon hour Central Time. Now it's 2 o'clock Eastern. We'll see you here in 3 hours at 4 Central, 5 Eastern for the Paul Harold program with my co-host Rob Spencer. God bless everybody. We'll see you then.
The very foundation of the Christian faith is based